We are now today speaking about Netgen Layouts case studies. If you would like to know more about layouts in general, well, in that case, it would be good if you checked some other webinars. I will mention that later. So, I'm Ivo, co-founder of Netgen, and we are an agency in Croatia. If you don't know about us, 15 years of experience in building complex web solutions. We work with Easy since 2004 and Symfony in the last 5 years. We also provide technology for other web agencies, for example, like Layouts. So that was just a very short introduction about me and the company. We also do the Web Summer Camp. If you don't know, it's a summer event, only workshops oriented in Croatia, near the sea. Check out, we just started to sell early birds. Okay, so about the previous webinars related to layouts, just a recap so you know what to check. So the first webinar was about Netgen Layouts version 0.8, and it was a bit about Netgen Layouts in general. We also had in October, we had some news about the version 0.9, more or less about the translations capabilities. And in December, we also featured 0.10 release, but also talked about the architecture in a bit deeper. And today we will talk about first case studies. You can find those webinars at our YouTube channel. There is a Netgen Webinar playlist. Okay, so before we dig in, let's just recap or make a short intro into layouts, very roughly. So what is layouts? We invented a new acronym, because why not? Layouts and Block Management System. It's a bit hard to explain what it is, so let me try. So it's a system that is able to provide you with single page building, for example, landing pages, home pages, search pages, checkout pages, and stuff like that. But it's also about site building in general. So it's also about providing layouts for article pages or product pages. So when we speak about, we speak about plural. So it's not just for a layout for one page, it's for a set of pages of the same kind. What is important to note is that the layouts is rendering the pages based on the layout structures. So it's not generating something and then this is used to deliver the pages. The layouts is actually rendering the pages. That's quite important to know. And it's also extensible and customizable platform based on Symfony PHP framework. So it's a system that when you need it, you use it. If it's in the way you just don't use it, you can still use whatever you use in everyday work. So you can just bypass it if you need. So it makes life easier for site builders and maintainers, because they can manage the website with sets of layouts and blocks. And when I mean websites, I mean could manage the whole pages of the website. Then, sorry, it also helps power editors when placing content. So this is quite important for situations where you have a persona that needs to prioritize content. So it can also help there. And of course, for developers when they need to extend, customize, or integrate. So why it's layouts so much interesting is that I think markets in general started to love layouting, and let me just prove it to you very simply. So this here is a system called Webflow. It's a cloud-based web building solution. And as you can see, it's about giving to non-developers the ability to create websites. And it has its layout and block kind of look and feel, but it's much more into detail. It's also about CSS or visual appearance kind of features, etc. This is a quote from Forbes where the co-founders of Webflow talked about how they want to, how they envision the Webflow to be. It's about giving the ability to non-developers to build websites. And that's kind of one way of doing it, of course. Then we have a Gutenberg project, which is coming from WordPress world. It's about renovating how the visual appearance for WordPress will be done in the future. And this was very recent, in August last year. Oh, it's actually the wrong year, sorry. So August 2017. It's about actually making WordPress even less hard to set up for developers and other people using WordPress. And then we have Drupal. So this is a Drupal layout manager, the new one. It's as Dries, co-founder or founder of Drupal, is saying, it's one of the top priorities for Drupal, and they recognized site building as a big priority for Drupal 8 and onwards. So obviously, if the market, and I would say that especially WordPress and Drupal are quite important in where the market is heading. If they are saying that layouting is important and it's a priority in their schedule, so I would say it's also interesting for us as well. So how is our layout solution different from all of those systems? First of all, it's built for custom and complex projects. That's quite big different because, for example, Webflow, it's a cloud-based thing. WordPress is also usually used for smaller projects. So layouts is coming from a world of more custom and more complex projects. It can control all website pages, not just one single page. That's quite important. It's not WYSIWYG. We are not trying to be WYSIWYG. It's more about the concepts, less about how it looks. And it's backend agnostic. So it actually, and I will show you later, be integrated with different backends. By the way, one note, if you have any questions regarding these topics, please use the chat feature and just write the questions right now, and I will address them in the end. So let's talk about first case studies. So I presume now that you know a bit about layouts and the core capabilities of layouts. If not, then please check out other webinars. The case studies I grouped by media portals, corporate sites, e-commerce use cases, and headless use cases. So let's start with media portals. So when we talk about media portals, what are media portals? Just to define them first of all, media portals are media-rich sites, and they are about producing and aggregating a lot of content. It's usually a similar content. So it's either news or it's either videos and stuff like that. So the variety of content is not that big, but there's a lot of content. It's also that we should expect high traffic. And the business model is based on either ads or selling access to content or something like that. So what a media portals usually are demanding, or the clients that want media portals, they usually demand, is often regular and scheduled editorial changes. That's quite different from other websites, because on other websites, usually the the content changes are much rarer. So in media portals, this is it's a daily, if not hourly work. And that's why the things tend to be automatic, or they want to be automatic as possible, but still overrideable. And they want also easy creation of ad hoc content, like themes or stories. And they want to optimize for traffic. So they want to show popular content, they want to show user recommendations and stuff like that. So if just to explain it in a very simple terms, they just want more traffic with less effort. So Layouts' core capabilities are addressing these demands in a big way. So with Layouts, it's easy to configure each block with automatic CMS fetches. This is quite simple. You can also watch it on earlier webinars. We can also, it's very easy to place CMS items manually in the block. And what is also interesting is that you can still override automatically by adding CMS items manually to a certain position. So all these core capabilities are offering the power editors or chief editors to quickly reschedule or reconfigure or reprioritize content on their home pages or theme pages or landing pages, etc. So this is all currently working with Easy Platform. Obviously, we are coming from the Easy world, but it also works with Cilius and the products. It also works with Contentful Headless CMS. And it should be fairly easy to integrate either with anything that has a REST API or anything that is Symfony based. So just to give you a quick example, so for example, this for one of our clients, it's a German media portal. We have a block which is selected, the blue header one, which is showing 4 items, and you can see on the right panel that it's a easy publish query, and it uses parent location home. It also has a limit of 4, and it also filters by content type article. So this is very, very straightforward. How do you do things with layouts? So getting a bit more interesting is popular content. So popular content, it could be a lot of things, but in our case, automatic content fetches based on most viewed with the statistics. In our case, we integrated with Google Analytics. Another example is automatic content fetches based on most shared in social media statistics. And for that, we needed to create a completely independent and other kind of service, which we call Social Stats, that gathers the data from Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we have integration of layouts and this service. And this is how it looks like. So the same page, we have another block, and it's a list of 4 items. But if you look on the right side, it's, oh, let me check. This is the Google Analytics, yeah. So the query type is Google Analytics, and it also has a view ID from Google Analytics, and it says it's the start date is 1 day ago. So it basically gives you 4 most viewed items in last 24 hours. Okay, so this was the Google Analytics example, and then we have also the social stats example. We have a query type social stats. You see the grid selected in the bottom, 4 items, and the title is popular on social networks, and this is what it gives us. It gives us the most popular 4 items from Facebook and Twitter in last 7 days. So these are examples of how you kind of solve the problems of media sites. It's trying to push the content that is most popular on the homepage or other pages. The other thing is themes. or story support. So this is about creating a page or a landing page or any kind of support for ad hoc content, let's say. So it's something that was not planned, but it kind of developed. So that's typical in news media is you have a couple of articles about some topic, and then you want to group them in some way. You want to create a page with a URL that will actually talk about this theme and group all the content around this theme. So with layouts, first of all, it's very easy to create a new layout and map it to a certain page. So this is very straightforward to do. But more importantly, we have also this easy tags fetch, which is a taxonomy feature that we also developed. And the point being is that with this, you actually very easily define content blocks based on some tags. So in our case, this is another media portal in Germany. It has a masonry block. You can see it roughly on the main side. And on the right side, you see it has a query type easy publish tags. And then we have selected 7 tags, which we use to fetch all the content which was tagged with this tag, and then it's shown in the masonry. And this is not shown here, but under the design tab, you would also see this is a paged load more kind of block. So it's a masonry grid. Of course, this could get even more complex if we have a use current location as parent checkbox. And then we would be able to use tags from the page which is shown. In this case, you would just need to create, for example, a theme object in Easy and tag it with several tags, and then a layout which is usually applied to theme objects would use those tags to populate this masonry grid. So thinking about speed, which is quite important as well for media portals, caching on all levels is crucial. So with layouts, we integrated with Varnish reverse proxy very tightly. So we have the ability to fine-grain caching validation, so it can pinpoint on which parts of the site you want to invalidate caches. And then we also have the ability to configure each block with its own TTL. So giving an example how this looks when you want to configure the cache of a block, you just enable the cache and set a TTL in seconds. And we can go actually to backwards a bit, and in this case you see that these 2 blocks on the left and on the right side, they have this small 1 hour mark on the block header, which means that it's the caching is enabled for this block, and it caches independently on Varnish for 1 hour. Okay, so going back to track. So this was mostly about media portals. Of course, we could talk about media portals in more depth, but this is just to roughly give you a couple of examples of how things could be quite easy with features that look a bit difficult for media sites. Similarly to corporate sites, let's define them. So corporate sites are usually marketing sales-oriented sites, and the difference is that maybe there is not a lot of content, but there's various kinds of content. So you have a lot of potentially a lot of different pages. And it's very often multilingual, so corporations tend to be global or at least regional, so they have they need multilingual capabilities. That's why we also like Easy Platform or Easy Publish as a CMS, because it solves the multilingual features in a very good way. It's also, corporate sites tend to be eventually get multi-site. They could start as a one site, but then clients usually need some microsites or additional sites during maintenance period. So we need to be able to quickly create those additional sites. And of course, there's probably some other definitions, but this was my definition of corporate site. So common demands coming from clients that need corporate sites. They need call to action or plural, many call to actions so that they can create leads or create connections with their audience or market. They want to integrate the site in the marketing sales process. They want to implement a kind of a design system, which basically means they want to reuse content and reuse the same blocks across the website, so they don't need to redesign all the time. They also want to create easily microsites and landing pages, etc. In that case, they want to basically reuse layouts. And they also want to be able to translate those sites, obviously. And how layouts are addressing this with the core capabilities. Well, first of all, the layouts or were built, are being built with reusability in mind. So we have layout mappings. So when layout is mapped to a certain set of URLs or pages, so you can map the same layout to many URLs. That's reusability. We have shared zones so that you can reuse the same zone across several layouts. This is again reusability of blocks. We have different block views for one block, so you reuse the same block which has the same functionality. You just implement different block views which are basically just twig templates. We also have block plugins so that it's easy to extend existing blocks, so you don't need to create new ones, etc., etc. So if you want to learn more about the reusability of all things in layouts, you can check out our documentation page. And of course, what is important is the translation module for translating. So just to give you an example, this is a typical corporate site we did in partnership with our Swiss partner Prime. So as you can see, this client wanted to create country sites which are almost the same but not exactly the same, and that was the challenging issue, how to manage all these small differences, because as soon as you have a small difference, you cannot use the same content, the same layout, etc. So in this case, we created a lot of home pages, but they are using a lot of the same content internally, and these home pages are related to home layouts. So as you can see, these are all basically microsites or country sites, and there's plenty of them. There's roughly 45 of them or something like that. So the point is that if they need to be different, it's possible to create a new layout and map it, but it doesn't have to be. So if they are actually exactly the same, we don't need to have two layouts. We can set the same layout for the same location. So that was one use case of how we deal with the complexity of of a lot of countrysides. The other use case is about the integration with the marketing sales process. So this was actually implemented by our Norwegian partner Kitek for one of their clients. They implemented a block in the bottom. It's called Zendesk ticket form. And obviously it's a block that renders a Zendesk form. What you see on the right side is they actually choose which form they will render, which is, by the way, defined in Zendesk. So this is a simple integration of a block that renders the form that they created or defined in Zendesk, and then they can place this block wherever they want on the website, in every place they want. So that was one example. The other one more example is about reusability. So this is, in our case, this is our client, which we just went live a couple of days ago. So they had it's a corporate site which has a main site, but it also has a section only for developers. So you obviously need to switch to a completely different part of the site, and this other part of the site has a different header and footer. And you can see here that the shared header footer for the main site has 24. It's linked to other 24 layouts, but the header footer for developers is used in 2 others. And this is why we choose to use headers and footers as blocks in layouts as well, because with that we can easily just create new kind of headers and footers, or even remove headers and footers if we need to. And that's actually quite often demand as well. If the client wants to create a landing page which is completely doesn't look like the main site at all, you just create a layout without using the standard header and footer. So again, a bit more case studies. A bit of e-commerce, not too big, just to mention. So e-commerce, what we get as a common demands for e-commerce products, e-commerce projects. It's about product findability. So obviously the product needs to be found. So it does have maybe to have a shop or checkout and basket feature. Maybe it's just a product catalog website, but we treat it as a e-commerce as well. So product findability. It's also about content marketing, which means you want to connect product with content, mix them, relate them. It's about enriching products with content, so you have additional information about products which you want to add to the page. Of course, selling content or other virtual products. This is, of course, a typical demand. So just a couple of use cases. Our partner Infolox is creating its own kind of system with several components, and they have PIM. They have actually several PIM systems they work with, which are collecting the product information from ERPs and CRMs, etc. And then they created their own solar storage for products. And then they use a CMS. In their case, it's easy as well. And they also use Cilius for the basket and checkout process. But they use layouts on top of that to kind of combine everything in one single front end. So that's their architecture for their typical project. So the point here is that they are using layouts to kind of use content or products or information from different kind of backend systems. This is how it looks when they want to manually add a product from their PIM solar storage. So this is they implemented by themselves a support for this, so they can browse the products and product groups in the solar storage and select them manually. This is an example of a dynamic collection, again, from the same backend. So they call the backend Infolox products. So this is the fetch query type Infolox products, and it's fetching product groups, 3 product groups, and showing it in a block. I think the block is not visible here, but you get the point. So this was about how they can put in the same front-end interface product as well as content from Easy CMS, for example, and they could mix it. This is another example, again from Keytech. We are doing a project for a Norwegian client with them together. So in this case, they have a typical kind of a sushi bar block, which is using some content from Easy, but they as well have a special block which is selecting additional engines from the CMS, which is related to the engine group which is being shown. So this is a layout for an engine group, and then they have a block showing industry engines which are related to this group. This was implemented like a custom block because it has a really rich front side, so it's a React-based component. So this was about e-commerce, just briefly. And then finally, I have a couple of more interesting use cases with a headless keyword. Just quickly, so layouts, when you think about headless, so there are a couple of use cases. So first of all, layouts could consume content from a headless CMS, and this is what we implemented already. We used this on our own project. So the Web Summer Camp website for 2018 is built with this technology, with layouts and then contentful in the backend. And there is another use case is enriching content from other sources. So, for example, what we started to use recently is for our easy platform-based projects, we tend to push the media files like images or videos to other systems. In our case, like Cloudinary. And then with layouts, we can actually select this content and add it to the layout. And one more interesting use case just started to be developed. So one of our clients is creating an interesting combination. So layouts are being in headless mode. So they are generating JSON, which describes all the layouts and all the blocks and all the block items inside. And then a FAT client, in their case, it's Vue-based JavaScript FAT client, is rendering this on the front page. So it's quite interesting story to follow. So these are very different use cases I want to share today. There will probably be more use cases and more interesting stories, but this was what I wanted to gather for this webinar. And I think it's enough content, enough interesting use cases inside. Just to give you to wrap this up. So as you can see, this is again a layout solution for the Web Summer Camp page, and you see some content on the right side. This is speakers for the PHP and Symfony topics, and this is fetched from Contentful. manually. So this is the example of for the Contentful integration. And for Cloudinary integration, this is again the one of the Norwegian projects we are working on. So this image in the default block is being fetched from Cloudinary. Okay, I think I'm done. Thank you. So now we can go to questions. Let me see if there, it seems there is a couple of questions already. So first questions from David. Does Layout store its data as content? You mean if it's stored as content in EZ Publish? Yes, you say, if so, what content types does it use? No, so David, the layouts are not depending on EZ platform, so we don't use EZ for the layout specific storage. So it's in the database in its own tables. We do integrate with EZ, so we can we are fetching the data from content. And we are storing the configuration of the fetch, but the items are not stored in layouts. They still exist in the CMS itself. So we just keep the reference to it. So rephrasing the question, what is the storage method layouts use to store its data? Yes, we use separate database tables, not a separate database, just separate tables in the database. Hope this answers your question, David. Any other questions? I have a couple of more participants. Just use the chat feature. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Chada, question, in case of accordion FAQ, frequently asked questions, it is good to create a new block view or easy tags? I'm not sure exactly what you are asking me. It actually depends on your content structure. But if you have content like a frequently asked question item, so if it's a separate content for each answer and question, then I think it would be an interesting way is to tag the frequently asked questions, and then create a layout which can fetch those items that are tagged with a certain tag and then list them, and that would be the way. Or you can just use, or you can just put all those items under some parent in the CMS and then fetch them directly. I hope this answers your question. David, again, what is next for layouts? Yeah, we are currently working on making it easier for these kind of corporate sites and brand sites to be able to create ad hoc content in much easier way. So currently, in case you have some layout which is only this, like it uses some content only on the layout itself. It's actually not existing anywhere else, and you are creating it when you are creating the layout. Then at this moment, for this version of layouts, you would need to go to the CMS back and create all these items and all these, we call it widgets or blurbs or banners or whatever. There's a lot of names for them. And then go back to the layout and then include them. So we need to make this process a bit smoother. So this is our current focus. And Xavi, do you have any solution about permissions on editing layouts for editors? Yes, this was introduced. Can't remember exactly in which version. So we have currently we have a very simple separation of two roles. So there's an admin role which can do everything, and then there is an editor role. So editor role cannot list layouts. It cannot create layouts. It cannot map layouts. It cannot change the ordering of layouts or whatever. So what an editor can do, it can just open a layout for a specific page and then manage the blocks for that layout. And currently that's a very simple thing. And of course, we need to implement much better policy control. Okay, and then one more question from David. I love questions. Thank you, David. What browsers do you recommend for layouts? Use it for best experience? Well, we as a typical web developers, we tend to work with the most used ones. So it should work with all newest browsers, and we usually test Chrome and Firefox and Safari and Internet Explorer or Edge, the last one, I think. So with all these typical ones, newest version should behave the same. If you go with a bit older Internet Explorer, that might get you in some trouble. Okay, any other questions? Of course, you can always reach me afterwards on other channels if you think about other questions. I think we are in 40 minutes. That's a great one. So thank you for attending this webinar. I will record it, of course, and share it later. Thanks for joining, and goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.